Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are covering a fast-moving and extremely tense situation as new reports confirm that Ukraine has carried out a powerful strike on a major Russian oil refinery located near Moscow, and this operation what follows a series of drone attacks that hit deep inside Russian territory, creating new shockwaves across the region and raising fresh questions about the direction of this conflict as we move through 2025. What we are witnessing right now is a major escalation, a dramatic demonstration of capability, and a clear message from Ukraine that long-range strategic strikes will continue as long as the war demands it. And in this report, we are bringing you a detailed and authentic analysis of everything that has happened, from the initial attack to the political reactions and the possible consequences that could follow in the coming weeks. The strike occurred during the early morning hours when most of the region was asleep, and according to Ukrainian sources, the attack targeted a key refinery that plays an important role in supplying fuel to both civilian sectors and Russian military logistics. And while official confirmation from Moscow has been limited, eyewitness accounts describe massive flames rising into the sky, emergency units rushing to the location, and sirens echoing through nearby districts. This is not the first time a refinery or fuel depot has been hit, but this particular site is among the closest significant targets to the Russian capital that Ukraine has reportedly reached, and that alone carries huge strategic impact. As the details emerge, analysts say the method of attack appears to have involved long-range drones launched from Ukrainian-controlled territory. These drones have been used repeatedly throughout the conflict to strike inside Russia, but the distance to Moscow makes this operation one of the most daring and technically advanced that Ukraine has attempted so far. The flight path is still being studied, but early assessments indicate that the drones successfully bypassed multiple layers of Russian air defense systems, and that raises serious questions about the vulnerability of assets near Moscow despite heavy fortifications and investments in protection. Ukrainian officials have described the attack as a necessary step to weaken Russia's war capability, stating that any infrastructure fueling military operations becomes a legitimate target in wartime. They argue that as long as Russia continues launching missiles, drones, and artillery strikes across Ukrainian cities, Ukraine has the right to respond with its own precision operations deep into Russian territory. This latest strike aligns with that position and demonstrates Ukraine is not only focusing on defensive actions but is actively working to degrade Russia's strategic capacity far beyond the front lines. Meanwhile, Russian authorities have acknowledged that an incident occurred at the refinery, but initially attempted to downplay the severity, as they often do during such attacks. However, satellite imagery and independent visual confirmations circulating online suggests considerable damage to multiple sections of the facility, including storage units and processing lines. According to local residents, the fire was intense enough to be seen from miles away, and the smell of burning fuel spread across several districts, forcing local emergency services to issue safety warnings and air quality alerts. The political fallout from this strike has been immediate. Russian state media is now framing the attack as a terrorist-style act, blaming Ukraine for reckless escalation, and some commentators are calling for a harsh retaliatory response. And whenever such language appears, the risk of expanded conflict increases drastically. Yet despite the aggressive tone, many Russian analysts are quietly expressing concern over the failure of the air defense systems to stop these drones, especially given the symbolic and strategic importance of the areas surrounding Moscow. This incident raises real questions about security gaps and operational reliability for Ukraine. The strike serves multiple tactical and psychological purposes. First, it disrupts Russian fuel processing capacity, which directly affects military transport and logistics. Second, it shows domestic and international audiences that Ukraine retains initiative and long-range capabilities even under heavy pressure. And third, it sends a message to Russia that distance alone will not protect strategic sites from Ukrainian drones as technology continues to evolve and adapt rapidly on the battlefield. This message has already resonated globally, and defense analysts across Europe and North America are calling this event a turning point in the long-range warfare aspect of the conflict. The timing of the attack is also significant, coming shortly after a wave of Russian drone and missile strikes across Ukraine that targeted critical infrastructure, power grids, and fuel depots as part of the ongoing strategy to weaken Ukraine energy stability during winter. In direct response, Ukraine has been increasing its retaliatory deep strike operations, hitting oil terminals, military factories, and air bases within Russia. This latest refinery attack fits into a wider operational pattern, showing both capability and intent to strike important assets that support the Russian military machine. On the ground near Moscow, emergency teams worked for hours to bring the fire under control, and while some local officials claimed the situation is now stabilized, witnesses say the flames continued to burn for a long period, indicating substantial structural impact. So far, there are number confirmed casualties, but the economic cost is expected to be significant. Refinery operations may be halted for days or even weeks, and that will not only affect regional supply but could ripple into national logistics chains that support frontline operations. International reactions have been mixed. Western Governments have reiterated that Ukraine has the right to defend itself and strike military-related targets while avoiding civilian casualties. However, many nations are also calling for caution, warning that repeated deep strikes around Moscow increase the risk of unpredictable consequences and potential retaliation cycles that could push the conflict into more dangerous territory. Global oil markets have already responded with slight price fluctuations, reflecting concerns about continued attacks on energy infrastructure in the region. The psychological impact on the Russian population should not be underestimated. Moscow has long been portrayed as a fortress city shielded from wartime danger, but this strike demonstrates that even heavily protected areas are not immune to modern drone warfare. Videos posted online reportedly by residents show bright flashes and thick smoke filling the sky, causing widespread alarm and confusion. And as these images continue circulating, public confidence in the government's ability to protect major cities may be shaken, a dynamic that has significant political implications moving forward for Ukrainian citizens. This operation is being framed as a demonstration of resilience and innovation, showing that despite the massive challenges of this war, Ukrainian forces continue adapting, learning and improving tactics and technologies to counter Russia's overwhelming size and resources. And this narrative plays a crucial role in maintaining national morale, especially during long periods of bombardment, power outages and infrastructure damage that civilians face daily across multiple regions. As the conflict continues, evolving drone warfare has become one of the most defining features shaping strategy and outcomes in this refinery. Strike highlights how accessible technology can penetrate traditional defense systems and alter the balance on the battlefield. Even without large-scale operations, drones provide cost-effective long-distance capabilities, allowing Ukraine to strike far beyond conventional artillery ranges. Russia has attempted to counter this with electronic warfare, radar upgrades and layered defense networks, but incidents like this prove the system is not impenetrable. Looking ahead, both sides may now increase their focus on offensive drone capabilities and defensive countermeasures. Ukraine will likely continue pushing deeper, using a mix of explosive drones, reconnaissance platforms and long-range modifications programs that have seen rapid development since the start of the conflict. Russia in turn is expected to expand air defense coverage, possibly redeploying additional units closer to Moscow and reshuffling assets from other regions, but doing so creates vulnerabilities elsewhere on the front lines. What makes this situation even more sensitive is the strategic value of oil refineries in modern warfare. They are essential for producing fuel for tanks, aircraft, transport vehicles and naval operations. Every refinery taken offline adds pressure to supply chains that support frontline and logistics operations. So even though Ukraine did not strike a military base, this facility plays a vital role in sustaining Russian wartime capability, which is why the attack has drawn so much attention from global military analysts. This strike also sends a signal regarding future conflict escalation possibilities. If Ukraine continues successfully hitting targets near Moscow, Russia may feel compelled to escalate in response, potentially broadening the conflict beyond current parameters, and that could provoke international diplomatic action to prevent further destabilization. And Western nations are closely monitoring these developments, preparing for possible shifts in the direction of the war, especially as winter approaches and energy infrastructure becomes an even more crucial target on both sides.